Hello everyone, my name is Mark Hanna and I'm the publisher of the Rio Grande Guardian, and today we are in Harlingen with Dr. Art Cavazos. Thank you so much, Dr. Cavazos, for being here with us today.
It's an honor.
Well, we had a lot of fun chat right before this live stream began, and before we get going with the amazing topics, things happening in Harlingen, Dr. Cavazos has been recognized for being the Superintendent of the Year by Region 1, and so many other initiatives that he started. But before we get into that, just before this, we were in the next room, and Dish Network made a big donation for the Hurricane Harvey victims. Talk to us a little bit about that, and how did that, you have a company, a big company, lots and lots of money, and they're giving back to the community. How did that happen?
So basically, it's devastating. Hurricane Harvey has really brought everybody together for a common good and so forth. And so sometimes these kind of things, there's some good that comes from it, right? And it's hard to see the good, but people are being displaced from the Houston area, Corpus and so forth, and Port Aransas and so forth. And as people are being displaced, sometimes they're leaving their homes just with nothing in their hands, right? Because they weren't expecting this kind of devastation. And so we are feeling some of that impact because some of the students and some of the children are ending up here. We just got notification that one of the school districts there is closing indefinitely, right? And so those children that went to seek help somewhere else are being encouraged to enroll where you are and stay where you are. And so children don't understand that. And so one of the things that we did early on here in Harlingen is begin to kind of coordinate our efforts. Because at a time of devastation, there's this sense of hope and people want to give back, right? And so we wanted to make certain that when we as HCISD began to give back, that we had a coordinated effort. And so we partnered with Habitat for Humanity, realizing that we were sending things to them, and at the same time we were receiving people that were displaced here. And so Dish Network, which is a local company here, a very large company, has a plant here, has reached out to us and realized that they wanted to give back, and they brought their efforts to us to backpacks and school supplies and basic necessities, and it was incredible because we knew that as we were collecting to send someone else to somewhere else, they were collecting for us, right? And so in a spirit of giving, that's really humbling, and it makes us realize how blessed we are here in the Valley, and of course HCISD. Very proud of my campuses, very proud of my leadership here in the district, beginning with the Board of Trustees. We answer the call when there's a call, and we believe that there's an outright call for all of us to champion and crusade this initiative. And so we're blessed to have companies like that give back to us as well.
Yeah, and do you invite more to come?
Sure, absolutely. And so we have some incredible partnerships, Mark. And we celebrate that because we realize that the work there's a lot of heavy lifting when you're educating students, and we realize we can't do it alone, and when there's a vested interest and there's partnerships that come together. And we're going to talk a little bit about some initiatives that we've started here that are anchored in some real strong partnerships that we're reaping the benefits of things that we've been working on throughout the years. And so we celebrate those moments because at a time when the education is critical, we want to make certain that we're all in. We roll up our sleeves and we're all in. So. And
you have to celebrate when good things happen to keep that momentum alive.
Absolutely.
Zig Ziglar, big motivational speaker, he passed away in 2009. People used to always tell him, motivation doesn't last. And he says, I know, and that's why you have to do it daily.
Right.
Neither does brushing your teeth.
That's
right. You got to do it daily.
That's right. It's not a one-time thing and, it's going to last forever. It doesn't work that way.
So everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. As you can tell, Dr. Cavazos is very enthusiastic about what he does. And, one thing, just based off his short introduction, that you can walk away with is leadership. And, as we go on through this discussion, you're going to see how his leadership has impacted the district in different ways. But before we get into the district, talk to us a little bit about your background. Where do you come from? How did you get into education? And is it something that you always wanted to do?
So there's a story there, and so I'm going to speak in decades so we can finish quick. So the story is really unique, and it's not unique in the sense that not others have done it. It's unique in the sense that we were the exception and not the rule at the time. And so I come from a family of 6. Grew up in a very small town here close to the border. People talk about the border wall. We see it from where my dad's home is now, right? And so there is. So what I can say is that we grew up blue collar family. My mother was a cafeteria worker. My dad worked for Central Power and Light, now AEP. Both have passed on and are no longer with us. They're with us in spirit, though. And so all of us were, the importance of an education. And so we used to work in high school, the co-op classes and, work half day and so forth. And I remember finishing high school and graduating and my mother saying, now, you're going to go in and turn in your resignation from the furniture store because you're going to go to college. And I said, well, wait a minute. I thought growing up meant we make decisions. But she said, here are your choices. You're gonna resign and go to college, or you can keep that job, but you're gonna move out of the house because then you're ready to move on if you're gonna keep that in front. And I said, well, do I take the car? That kind of nonsense. And so forth. She said, no, you don't take anything.
Can I come home for laundry?
No.
Will you still do that?
She said, you don't take anything. And I said, great. So, fast forward, I chose to go to school and got an education and so forth. And so it was always that promoting education. And this is what is resounding with our entire family. My parents, we come from a lot of poverty. We didn't know we were poor until we found out growing up. Wait a minute, we don't have that. No, we didn't know we were poor until we got to high school, right? I mean, that's when you begin to, okay. My mother used to say, and my parents, the inheritance we're going to leave you is your education.
Wow.
And so when we are gone from this earth, the only thing that's going to support you and sustain you is going to be your education.
Wow.
And she said, and we're going to do everything we can to get you to that finish line, but thereafter, that's your inheritance. And looking back,
yeah,
it's critical. So we're first generation college graduates, and we were very unique. There was a time when 3 of us were practicing superintendents in the state of Texas.
Wow.
And all graduates from UT Austin, actually. And we got our doctors from UT Austin and so forth. Yeah, for the Longhorn. Of course, for the Aggie folks that are listening, we want to, and looking, we're Aggie supporters too.
We don't discriminate.
So did I know education? So our kickoff focused on igniting the fire, and really what that translates into is we want to make sure people find their purpose and their why in life. I think I have found my why.
Yeah.
I wake up every day with looking for ways to create opportunities and choices for kids that we may not have had. Now, I will tell you that when I tell the story about where we've come and how far we've come, and only in this great state and this great country can we start in the fields, right? And then end up as a CEO of a great school district, right? Only in this. But when I tell people that story, oftentimes there's an applause and that kind of stuff. Well, I live for the day when it's no longer an exception, but it's a rule. And that everybody finds their why, and because when you find your why and you really like what you're doing, you've reached happiness, right? And
of course.
That's our greatest hope for all our kids.
Purpose, bringing purpose to everyone's.
Bringing purpose to life. This journey is quick.
Yeah.
Life is quick, right? And
yeah,
so
right.
We know that.
And no one gets out alive. So
and nobody gets right. And nobody comes back.
Yeah.
That I know of. So
you wanna always take those risks and be brave, and it seems like you and the rest of your family, you all did that.
Yeah.
So I'm also one of the first in my family to graduate out of a total of 5, so I can definitely understand that. And it's important that we promote education because I spoke the other day to some educators, and I said, well, to me, education is the foundation to the world. I can't think of any profession that you can accomplish or get to without education.
That's exactly right. Well, and here's another thought, and as we kind of deep dive into that, education is the equalizer, right? And if we really believe that, but the only way to access that is to be able to read.
Yeah.
Right? And so literacy is critical, and so we can have high aspirations and hopes that everybody gets an education, gets their feet under them, but if they cannot read,
yes,
and that's why we promote literacy and the importance of reading, and readers are leaders, and leaders are readers, and so forth, is because if you can't read, you're not going to access the American dream, right? And so, or it's going to take you longer, right? And so, congratulations for being a first generation college graduate, but we must remind ourselves, and of course all our family, that we're only one generation out.
Yeah.
And so I tell my own kids that it's like a rubber band. the regression of the mean, right? And so it'll snap back. And
If you
so
don't-
it's quick. We can quickly go back
If-
to being first non-graduates.
Yeah.
And so I tell my own kids, and I tell the kids in my district, if you're first generation college graduate, your brothers are and so forth, you gotta go second generation. Because we're
Yeah.
competing with people who are 13, 14, 15 generations out.
Yeah.
So we got a long journey to go. Right?
Some healthy competition, right?
Yes, healthy competition. It's always good, Mark, always good.
Well, we want to thank everyone for tuning in. We have a few comments. Joe Garcia, Harlingen is blessed to have Dr. Art Cavazos as their superintendent. Thank you so much for that comment, Joe. Nancy Gonzalez says, love the interaction he has with our kids and our community. God bless him. So you have some fans out there.
Yeah,
you have some fans out there. I don't know, did you pay them or did you talk to them?
We lined them up.
We lined them
up. Mark, don't go there. Mark. They're standing outside, though. So,
well, we want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we can already tell why people follow you. Let's talk about the recent reward that you were awarded by Region 1 as Superintendent of the Year. So how did that happen, and how did you feel afterwards? Just hearing your beginning story, reaching something like that, I can imagine how exciting it was.
well, so I'm going to speak to that by putting a little context, right? And so I shared with you that there were a couple of more brothers that were superintendents and so forth. And so a few years ago, I was asked to go to the White House as a connect top superintendent, 100 superintendents, right, and so forth. And so
No big deal,
no
right?
big deal, but it was very secretive, and my director of public relations was handling, that kind of thing. And you can't tell anybody and so forth, and you know how it is, right? And so finally they said, okay, it's public information. You can go ahead and say that you have been invited as one of 100 superintendents throughout the country. So I texted my brother and I said, guess where your brother is going? And he said, to the White House. I said, yes. And he said, I'm going to. And so both of us, we were the only siblings that were invited. So this is 100 superintendents in the country.
So
right?
top
That's
100 superintendents in the country, two
Two
brothers
who were-
from
and
the
so-
Rio Grande
from
Valley.
the Rio Grande Valley. And so, born and raised, right? And so when we got there, they said, are you all related? I said, yes, he's my older brother. Well, he's really younger. But when I was named Superintendent of the Year, here's what's humbling about it, is that process requires the board to pass a resolution and to submit your name and then work on an application. It's really a Board of Trustees function. And so they submit and send that information and say, we believe we have a Superintendent of the Year candidate, right? And so at a board meeting, they read the resolution, and of course, it's pretty humbling, because at the end of the day, really, you're not doing it about yourself, you're doing it about the children, right?
About your work.
And about the work. And so I can't do this work without my great board. And so you're going to talk to other superintendents, they're going to say, similar things, but really, I have a very unique board, and we're blessed in Harlingen to have a great board. So when I was told, I had to go for an interview, and so I went to an interview and so forth, and so they called me, and I was on my way to function in Austin where I was going to speak, right? And so I get the phone, and I know it's Region 1 calling, and I said, you're going to tell me that I'm the groomsman and not the groom. Is that what this guy, I said, I'm tired of being invited to weddings, and I'm not the groom. What is it? And he said, you've been selected.
Wow.
And I wasn't expecting it, right? And so I was pausing. He said, are you there? And I said, yes, I'm here. And I said, and he said, you've been selected, and you're the superintendent of the year for the region. And he said, and we'll be getting back to you and so forth. And I said, is it public information? He said, yes. And so I said, okay. So, at that moment, you stop and you think and you say, this journey, while it's short, there's some pivotal moments in time. And so what we do in Harlingen, so I'm going to tie it back to Harlingen, is we really want those moments in time for our kids to experience them. In our school district, with a passion, finding their why, with our staff. And, it's not just not words, but we're putting it into action by the initiatives and things that we're launching, because every kid's switch will be turned on, right? And when you find your purpose, there's no stopping the kid.
Yeah.
And you know that. You know that by families and friends and, your own children and so forth, is that when they find their passion, and, it's not going to translate into a career, But when they really like what they're doing and they're connected, there's no stopping them.
Yeah.
And the person who's working with them becomes a facilitator of learning and not the dispenser of knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? They're just facilitating the learning because they found it. They're in that space. Right? So it was truly humbling to get that call, and I realized that I'm blessed more than I deserve. So.
Well, some of the reasons that you won the award, were for the following. A full-scale K through 12 robotics program, chess teams throughout the school district, including a state championship elementary chess team, a district-wide preschool reading initiative. We talked about literacy and the importance there. A restructuring of the college counseling program, resulting in a 100% rate of high school students applying to college or to the military. I mean, when you hear those things and you think about it, this is something that didn't happen at a school. This is a whole district. Talk to us about how many elementaries, middle schools, high schools are here, and more or less the student count.
Sure. So we have 17 elementary schools. 5 of those are dual language academies. We have 5 middle schools. I have a 9th grade campus that was built like a college, and it has programs of study. And so the students choose their program of study. So it's aligned to the endorsements. We have 2 comprehensive high schools, the Cardinals and the Hawks. I know you're a McAllen person,
but it's okay.
But anyway, so Cardinals and Hawks. We have specialty schools, and so I have a medical high school. It's called the Harlingen School of Health Professions. It's a 5-graded program, so it's 8th through 12th grade. We have an early college high school that we just signed an MOU with UTRGV.
Very exciting.
We created 3 pathways to a baccalaureate program. And they will have 2 years to go once they finish high school. The first 2 years are free of charge, and of course the next 2 years. Those pathways are pre-engineering to support the demand and the excitement of our STEM initiative through the robotics program and those events that we have. A teacher academy.
Oh, wow.
We're a big, every school and every community, the largest employer is the
school district.
Right? And then the academic core, which is good for any other program that they may want to pursue. So we have an early college high school. I have an accelerated school, which is like, it's called Keys Academy, and those are for kids that have fallen behind.
Okay.
And then we have a discipline alternative school. It's our boot camp for kids that have not yet chosen to do the right thing. And
yeah.
So
you're asking them the question, your mom. You have 2 options.
Yeah, you
here.
have 2 options: the DAP or here. No, and so we have 29 campuses. We're a little under 18,600 students in our school district. We employ about 3,300 people.
Wow.
In our school district, and we have a budget of about $200 million annual budget. So.
Wow. And these best practices that you've kind of brought into play. I assume it's a combination of your personal experience, best practices from other areas. How have you put together this strategic plan to say, hey, this is the initiative and this is the direction that we need to go in, and this is why? So
I think we found the formula that that has a conduit to get us to where we are. And so when I became superintendent, we embarked into a strategic plan. And I have been involved in strategic plans in the past that sometimes, they'll get done and then we move on, right? And so this one, actually, we anchor everything we do in the strategic plan. We had over 800 people join us from all throughout the community and different sectors, come and talk to us about what's their highest hopes for HCISD kids.
Wow.
What is it that they're looking for? So the strength of the strategic plan speaks to specific result statements and what we want to see HCISD. And one of the things that really focus the strategic plan is this whole idea of menu of opportunities.
Menu of
opportunities.
Okay.
Authentic learning experiences, and giving this whole strand of giving people choice in services, opportunities, programming, anchored on what we call the 4 C's. We want our kids to be able to walk out of HCISD with the high ability to communicate, to collaborate with people, to think critically, and be creative. Wow. And so regardless of what jobs we're preparing them for, and some you will argue that they don't even exist, if you're able to do those 4 C's, you're going to navigate this world pretty nice.
Yeah.
And so we want to make certain that we speak to the spirit of the strategic plan. Let me tell you how strong the strategic plan is here. In that, once we adopted it, we assembled into design teams, and the corporate world knows it as think tanks.
Yeah, think
Right? And so
a bunch of SWOT analysis.
yeah. And so we have working design teams that are working at making certain that we're launching the very things that we need to do to meet the spirit of the strategic plan. And so in Harlingen, as you can read about it, and you go through our website and so forth, we have some pretty incredible things that we have been launching in the last 3 years. But there's quite a bit of things in development.
That are coming down the pipeline.
Are coming down the pipeline, because oftentimes, and we believe, and we strongly believe, that we have to plan the work and then work the plan.
Yeah.
And so if we plan the work, which is the development stage, then we execute and we work the plan, and we're simply
Adjusting.
Exactly. And we also believe that if we tell the community we're going to do something, we're going to see it through. And so we believe in what we call responsible rollouts. It's not about shocking the system. It's responsibly rolling out and communicating with people. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
It was a big thing to invest $17 million in a medical high school in Harlingen, right? The strategic plan, our tax ratification election was anchored on the strategic plan. This very conservative community supported a 10-cent tax increase on themselves to support the public school systems. 10 cents.
Yeah.
This was not swapping pennies and all of that. It was
Yeah.
a direct increase in taxes. But what we committed to was, and our whole purpose was, if we're going to have a strategic plan, we need to have a strategic financial plan.
Correct.
And the strategic financial plan created a revenue source of $10 million annually that the board has committed to invest to modernize all our schools.
Wow.
And this is annual $10 million we're investing every year in our schools, and we're in our third year of investments. And so we're super excited about that.
Yeah.
We've modernized our classrooms, made them into collaborative learning platforms. We've integrated technology responsibly, and we're redesigning our secondary school experiences. So we're on a mission. We're on a journey. It's very calculated, but we're super excited because this community supports Harlingen Public Schools.
And let's
Not Harlingen Superintendent, Harlingen Public Schools. Make sure you get that right, Mark. So,
talk to us about this medical school, this high school medical school. For what is the overall goal, the long-term goal, and what sector are you servicing? Because being such a unique facility like that, I can imagine that you bring students from all over the region.
right. So here's so it's a 5-graded program, right, 8th through 12th grade. It has 6 programs of study, and those programs of study, the labs that are existing in that school, and one day you'll come and visit.
Yeah,
And,
I might go back to school.
Yeah. So those 6 labs were actually designed by our industry partners.
Okay.
And so we have a pharmacology pathway, dental pathway, sports medicine pathway, biomedical research pathway, patient care pathway, and a surgical procedures pathway.
Wow.
So you walk into my surgical procedures lab classroom. It's got a lecture site, but it has what you would see in an operating room.
Wow.
And so the kids, the whole idea behind that is
Wow.
what we call a deep dive into those careers, because we want kids to be college and career ready. And if you're going to find your passion, you need to be exposed to those programs. Right?
Hands-on.
And so it's going to be authentic learning experiences, hands-on. So in the 11th grade, that program is designed to be clinical rotations within our labs, because they're as if you were out in the community.
Yeah.
And the senior year, they're going to be out in the community, but not just shadowing, but a deep dive. And so let me give you an example. When we built that campus, we went all over the country looking for the proven practices, not the best practices. The proven practices.
Very
And
big
so
difference,
Very
right?
different, yeah, because what's best for you may not be best for me, but
Yeah.
so we wanted proven practices. And we were sitting in one of the schools that we went to visit, and we knew that we're a medical community here. We have a lot of, and people realize now in our conversations that hospitals are not run by 100% of doctors, right?
Yeah.
There's 90% are not doctors, right? And so there's a lot of space for professions and so forth to find your passion. We're sitting at one of the medical high schools that we went to visit, and it was our design team, right? And I told there was a senior kid, and I said, now tell me what's unique. And because I know you're going to graduate with a high school diploma. What's unique about your experience? And he said, sir, you want me to tell you what's unique? He said, I have a mentor that's a doctor, that's a surgeon. He said, and that mentorship and that relationship that I have with that surgeon, he said, in the fall, we were there in the spring, he said, I got a text from the surgeon and said, we're going to go pick up an organ, we're going to do an organ transplant, do you want to go? And so they were going to get on a plane and come to actually the valley and pick up an organ and then take it back and do the transplant. And so he sat in the space, looking at how all that's done. He flew with the doctor, and he said, it was at that moment that I knew, not only did I want to be a surgeon, but the type of surgeon I'm going to be.
Wow.
That's an example of finding your passion and finding your why. Now, this are School of Health Professions. We create certification opportunities through that center, through that school. We just launched our LVN program with Valley Baptist Medical Center. So our kids will be taking classes there, and with Valley Baptist, with Manny Bella, the CEO there. Incredible opportunity.
Yeah.
But we've had a model that we're expanding to the district. We were probably one of the first to open an early college high school. I have kids graduating from there, and 2 years later they're teaching for me, right? And
Wow.
so there's people and there's kids in our district that are very focused on what they want to do, and others live in the space of exploration, right?
Yeah.
But we want them to explore in our nickel,
Yeah.
not when they're in college and say, I want to change my major.
Yeah.
I told my son, you went through Harlingen school, you can't change your major. Mark, he says, I need to talk to you. No, you're not going to talk to me. You're going to
finish.
You're going to finish, yeah. His goal is to get off my payroll. All right, let's move on. So, in case he's watching. So,
well, the private community, the private sector, these partnerships that you're developing, there's also a partnership with Apple.
mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. I mean, it seems like the school district, you all are saying, okay, in addition to working a strategic plan and getting the input from about 800 different people
Mm-hmm.
and developing design teams or think tanks, in addition, you're going out to the private sector and saying, okay, what skill set, what pathway do you think would help us get students to you?
Right.
There's a lot of collaboration. As a superintendent, or as the superintendent of the year for
okay,
Region 1. Let's put that there.
Don't look at the comments yet, Mark. So,
how important is it, do you think it is for a school district, any school district, to collaborate the way Harlingen is?
Critical. I'm going to give you a local example, and I'm going to give you a national example.
A proven example.
A proven example. I had a couple of parents that came to see me early on in my tenure as a superintendent and said they have parents of special needs kids. I said, Dr. Cavazos, I don't know if you know this, and my child has limited abilities. He said, and the hardest thing for us as parents is we drive in this community, we drive around parks because our kids can't play in those parks, because our kids are so limited in abilities. And I never forgot that conversation, because I've been blessed with a great memory, right? And so, those things guide my work and guide my passion and guide this district's passion. And just last year, we opened 2 all-inclusive playgrounds in Harlingen with the city of Harlingen. And so we literally, children can take their wheelchairs and get on swings with full swings on their wheelchair. It's an all-purpose, all-inclusive playground, so kids of limited abilities can play alongside kids with full abilities. Yeah. And so my greatest hope is that parent can now, with pride, drive by our parks. That's a local partnership. I know I couldn't do it alone.
Yeah.
So we had to find a way to do it together, and the way we did it is basically that park belongs to HCISD during the school year, and then it belongs to the community outside of the school year. And it's really working the plan and looking for ways. So another local partnership, we partner with the fire department, so we have our firefighter academy with our local fire department. It's now with a college, so they are doing that program with our fire department. They built a new fire station on the west side of town, and so it's at one of our high schools. National partnerships, we believe that those are important as well. And so when I talked about modernizing our schools, We haven't changed out our furniture in many years in Harlingen because that was not in that priority.
These are nice chairs.
Well, yeah, this is new because of the TRE. No, so what we did is we modernized over 200 elementary schools, classrooms from third, fourth, and fifth, and we made them collaborative learning platforms. And so the furniture is very conducive to collaboration, to communication, critical thinking, and so forth. Apple joined our partnership, and so we rolled out a technology initiative. Now in Harlingen, we have our Bring Your Own Device initiative.
Yeah.
And so we invest, and the families invest. And in some cases, families have better replacement plans than we do, right? Every Christmas they get a new one. So,
yeah.
And what world are you going to sit around the table and everybody has the same device, right? And so we want to give them as much experience as what they're going to encounter in colleges and so forth. And so Apple did our responsible rollout of professional development, and they then have now gone into the partnership of helping us with a coding program, because we did a scalable model on robotics in Harlingen, which I'm super excited about. And so you have kids that, you're closing the doors and they're not leaving because they want to play with those robots, and we're very competitive in Harlingen. And so we advanced well, and because of that, energy and synergy, I was asked if I would serve on the first board of Texas, which is First Robotics at the state level, and I said I'll do it because I believe that STEM is the answers to some of the problems that we haven't been able to solve as a generation, and we need to prepare this generation to go out and solve those problems.
So how important do you think robotics? I mean, there's so many jobs that have not been created that will involve robotics, and some people are scared of that because they think that it's going to take away jobs from humans. But I think it's just going to amplify our abilities. How important do you think it is for our youth to be exposed to the robotic industry?
Well, I'll answer it in a couple of ways. Number one is if we don't expose them, they'll be exposed somehow.
Yeah.
Because the children are not coming here to be in front of classes or in classes where someone is dispensing all knowledge. They are bringing, our phones are a walking library.
Oh yeah.
They can self-teach, and so our teachers are migrating, and they have to be able to fluidly move from the sage on the stage, if you will, to the facilitator of knowledge, right? And so robotics is critical, and let me tell you that it's not necessarily just critical because you need to know how to code and how to make the robot do what you want it to do, but it's in working with other people and collaborating and communicating, and what a thought.
Yeah.
And thinking creatively.
Wait, hold on, let me text you instead.
Here we go. So don't be taking that to other school districts. So I think it's critical, and I think that in that, and one day you'll come and visit Harlingen where you will see some kids that are fully engaged in that space, and let me tell you that you will look into that sea of kids, and you will be convinced that some of the answers to some things that we have not been able to solve lie in those very brains that we're developing. I went to the world competition of robotics, and it was here in Texas. Incredible.
Yeah.
Teams from all over the world, and they were sectioned off, and representing their country and so forth. But there is no divisiveness at that level. It's all competition, and it's really kids having some great times around. But boy, communication, if you don't communicate, that robot's not going to move. I'll tell you what. So it's critical, and I think it's a critical space, and that's why we've brought it to scale. And when I say scale, one of the things that we have learned here is that we don't call them pilot programs. We because pilot means, because pilot means it may go away, right? Or we pilot it and it goes away, right?
Okay.
And so what we say is you have a chance to opt in, and there's going to be a 2 or 3 year in which everybody will jump in, right? And so there was an opt-in period, but the outcome was incredible. And so it only took us 2 years to bring it to scale, which we're pleased about that.
And I'm sure there's a lot of other projects, other initiatives that you're working on bringing to scale. The one thing that I want to talk about is the Arts Media Center that was just launched. Communication right now is so big, and I don't mean communication as in, media outlets per se. I mean just one-on-one when I'm trying to deliver a message and
Are you
know,
trying to secure your job? So,
I'll be here tomorrow.
I'll be here tomorrow. So,
But communication, I mean, with students in the job sector, it's something that we've strayed away from. People communicate through devices now. They text, videos. So it seems like educators are saying, hey, we need to focus back on communication, strategically communicating, developing an idea, and being able to express it in a way that people understand. Understanding who you're talking to. Sometimes you have to adjust how you speak in layman's terms, etc. So, before the live stream, you mentioned this arts media communication.
Media Arts Communication Academy.
And wow, this is another thing that you're adding back to the communication. So, how did this start off, and what kind of students do you see going through this program?
So we talked about robotics. So I'm going to give you a term. When there's pressure to change, and it's greater than the resistance, there's going to be change.
Right? Oh yeah.
And so we create early on pipelines, and then all of a sudden kids are asking for more and more and more. And so what has happened is that this whole importance of the 4 C's, communication, the collaboration, and so forth, it manifested itself into this, and it lives in the world of technology, right? So our Media Arts Communication Academy is going to do, of course, the audio-visual, but it's also going to be online radio broadcasting, right? It's going to be high-end graphic designs, and we're blessed that in Harlingen we had sponsors, and we just put in a whole new scoreboard and system at Boga Stadium, right? And through sponsorship, but that whole digital system that's high-end and with a camera system and all that, that's being turned over to my junior, senior kids from Media Arts Communication Academy, where my instructors are working as facilitators, but they handle 100% of the recording and the broadcasting out of that stadium. It is our largest classroom in our schools, and so when I visit with those kids, I tell them, "You're on, you're the largest classroom," and so that space. We partnered with Moody College out of UT, and when we were visiting with different higher eds, it was actually UT RGG that said you might want to get into the space of online radio broadcasting, and so we enveloped that in our Media Arts Communication Academy. And I say envelope it is because it's a fluid system, right? If you think you're building and it'll never change, and so I want to focus on that and highlight a little bit of that. Is that in Harlingen we believe that we continuously have to transform and reinvent ourselves, because it's not the same children that we're educating decade after decade, and they're coming in demanding more, and they're pushing that we deliver it in a different format. And so that Media Arts Communication Academy, it's a space, and here's how we're going to give back to the community. It's going to be almost run as if it were a business. And so if communities and small businesses need some help with graphic design and so forth, well, here's a project, and in return, donate to their club, right?
Very cool.
And I will tell you, there are some children in those programs, and it's incredible the work they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we impede progress. No, I'm not going to say that, Mark. So, but it's giving them the space to be creative.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that if you give them the parameters, and those kids, we have a student film award, annual film awards, and we invite other districts and so forth, and we have it at our Performing Arts Center, and it's all student-driven, student projects and so forth, but we run it like the Academy Awards.
Wow.
And so we recognize, and so the demand was such that we said we need to create a space for it, and so it's our Media Arts Communication Academy that we've launched.
Just another program where you're empowering students.
Empowering students and giving them authentic learning experiences. What really helps is that we involve the industry, and they give us the latest feedback.
That subject matter expertise.
Exactly, and look, we don't live in that space.
Yeah.
Before, it was just dispensing just basic knowledge. Now it's a whole different area.
Yeah.
We have an advisory board out of the medical school, and when I first met with them, I said, let me tell you why we've invited you. And every pathway was represented. And then general physicians. And I said, look, I want you to think back when you were in high school and then when you went off to medical school. And this is your chance. This is a clean board. All the do-overs, put them here. I wish I had. All the I could-haves, I would-haves, and I should-haves.
How long were you
I
there?
said, It was an hour and a half. And you know one thing that came out of it? One of the physicians said, I'll tell you the best thing you can do for these children. Eliminate fear. Put them in situations where they eliminate the fear. He said, because a lot of people that don't make it through medical school is because they have the fear of asking questions, and I don't know this, or they come from families that don't have any physicians in their family.
Yeah.
Right? So how do they persist? How do they move on? And so oftentimes what happens is that instead of leaning into the fear, they're walking away from the fear. And I said, well, how do we do that? He said, it's very simple. He said, put them in the spaces. When doctors and people come from the industry here, they shake their hand, they ask the questions. We're here to help, rather than, I wonder what they want, or I wonder who they are, and maybe they know more than I do, and so forth. Yeah. And so it's incredible. It's incredible when you look at things through that lens.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Lean into the fear rather than run away from the fear. Because I'll tell you, first generation, and you're first generation, there were many times we wanted to walk away. Yeah. But somebody was saying, no, you need to do it, you need to do it.
The only option is that way.
That way. And we say, but we came from over here. So that's important.
Well, buffalo, most animals, they run away from the storm. Buffaloes go through the storm because they understand that the fastest way out is through the storm.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's right.
So I've never heard that, one way to help students eliminate fear. That probably would have been on my list.
Right.
I probably would have peeked at his and said.
And what was interesting is that he was able to verbalize it, that doctor. Yeah. And suppose that we didn't have that advisory council. Suppose we didn't invite the community in to our schools. Help us help kids, right? Yeah. Because when you think about it, just he threw out that term, that statement, and then you think, well, I wonder what that really means. And so you start doing a deep dive and say, well, if that can eliminate the barriers, the future barriers, so what is he really saying? Yeah. Give them opportunities to gain their confidence. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? You put them in situations where they communicate, they collaborate, they think critically, they're held accountable, they're responsible, character, that kind of stuff. So it's critical. They know the subject matter in some cases better than we do. So.
And what about the aspect of telling students, I've experienced it firsthand, that you will fall flat on your face, but it's okay. You have to get up, learn the lesson, and continue to move forward. How do you communicate with students on that aspect?
Well, I guess that what we have to promote all the time is that the only way to get stronger is to have failure. Yeah. Right? Because it's not in the easy path that we become the strong people. Correct. Right? It's in how many storms are we going to weather? Yeah. How many trials and tribulations are we going to have? Here in Harlingen, before we graduate our kids, I bring the top 10 kids and I do an interview and I sit with them and I talk to them about what did they get from the school district, that kind of stuff. And it's a sit down just like we're doing here. And one of the things that I ask them, I say, the people must think that this was easy for you to be a top 10 students. Can you point to a difficult time in your journey in school, whether personal or a class and so forth? And everyone can point to something. And in some cases, they're deep-rooted issues, but they overcame. Yeah. Right? And so when you have those knocks in your life, you're more likely to persist, right? And so we're all going to have it. And so how do you talk to kids about that? Is you're going to have your challenges. Life's not easy. Anything good in life, you're going to work for it. Yeah. And you had to work for it, Mark.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I'm here working for it now.
That's right. That's right. So, well, not one question has come in. Okay, go ahead, say it, Mark.
Well, we've had a lot of good comments from Bobby Munoz. Dr. Cavazos is an amazing leader with great foresight. Thank you, Bobby, for that comment. Gracie Marroquin, I agree with Nancy Gonzalez. I'm a Harlingen High School graduate, 1981. I love that he is so active in everything that is going on with the district. A very down-to-earth person that is very approachable. And then they said, thank you for all you do, Dr. Cavazos. So, Gracie, thank you for that comment. And we have Dr. Jay Gonzalez tuning in from McAllen. So, Dr. Gonzalez, thank you so much for tuning in.
So I already went through all the things I'm doing, Jay. So you just tuned in. Thanks for joining.
We have Matt Ruszczyk from the Rio Restec. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, the next subject that we kind of want to talk about is RGV First. Talk to us a little bit about RGV First. What is it, and how did you get involved?
So it's all anchored on our robotic scalable project, right? And so it's really the conduit here in the Valley on how kids and teams begin to compete and so forth. And so when you look at First Robotics, and it's really worldwide. It's not just a Texas thing. It's really a segment of it.
Yeah.
We got involved because we created a lot of pressure and said, we got more teams and we got more teams. And so
healthy competition.
Yeah, healthy competition. And
yes.
And I'll tell you that oftentimes in journeys, right, a moment in time becomes a movement. And so we had a moment in time where we had a group of kids that really delved into robotics, and it became a movement in Harlingen. And so that's how we began to work with RGB First, and the realization that there was a lot of passion in that program. And so our staff works hand in glove with RGB First. We sponsor events here in Harlingen. We want to make certain that we give kids opportunities, and so it's a remarkable component of First in Texas. And so I was familiar with it when I became a board member in First in Texas. And now it's as if they were here in Harlingen. So they're a great partner. And so speaking of a regional partner, that's a great partnership for us.
And what about you talked about a partnership with UTRGV. What about the community colleges, the other institutions? Any partnerships or ongoing communication with them?
Sure. So Texas Southmost College, our dual credit programming at our comprehensive high schools is 100% a partnership with Texas Southmost College.
Perfect.
Our early college high school is a direct partnership with a four-year institution, which is UTRGV. And that MOU just got signed this year. For years, and we created that school, we were in partnership with TSTC. And so UTRGV being a regional university, we wanted to create, going back to choice and opportunities for kids, direct baccalaureate pathways. And so we have a pre-engineering pathway with UTRGV, and so that is going to support our STEM initiative. And of course, earlier I mentioned the teaching pathway. And so we partner with TSC, and let me tell you that with UTRGV, we have some very unique partnerships that go beyond the student level. We work with them on a step-up program, and that program was designed to reconfigure and redesign the student teaching experience for teachers coming into the profession. And so if you know a little bit about that, it's usually your last semester before you graduate, right? And so it may be the fall or the spring semester. So we completely blew up that system in a partnership, and we call it now a step-up program, and it's a year-long program.
Wow,
And
for new educators.
For the new educators that are going to finish their teaching degree.
And a lot of educators are
and
now.
a lot of educators are listening. So the student teaching experience goes from how do you start a school year to how do you finish a school year. And so oftentimes in the old experience, you would either see the spring semester or the fall semester. And so these candidates of the step-up program with UTRGV, and we're the only ones that have that program. And I met with Admiral McCraven out of UT, Chancellor, and he said, well, Art, how can we bring it to scale in the whole UT system? I said, pump the brake, Admiral.
Let's start with Harlingen.
We want to be responsible here. So those individuals spend the entire year with us. And so it's not adding additional courses to their coursework. It's just redesigning the student teaching experience. Yeah. And so what that has done is that literally, Mark, when you hire individuals like that, they're second-year experienced teachers because they have spent the full year in the classroom.
Hands-on.
Right? And so it's hands-on. You're not trying to figure out what a school year looks like. They're not walking around aimlessly, Mark.
Decorating 101.
Decorating 101. You don't have to do that. So we have that partnership, and of course we have a master's program partnership for our teachers, and it's part of our multipliers and training program. And so they teach all the classes out of the university center here. So.
Wow. And for your internal, educators, how important is it for continuing education to happen?
Critical.
Yeah.
Critical. I'm a late bloomer. No, why are you laughing?
If you're a late bloomer, then
what am I? So I earned my doctorate degree in 2012. So I went back to UT Austin in spring of 2009 at 10. And then went and pursued a doctoral degree. So I graduated with a doctorate degree from UT in 2012. And so continuing education, being a role model for that space, lifelong learners, all that kind of, it's more than just verbiage. It has to be put into practice, and kids need to know that it's not a sprint.
It's a marathon.
Yes, sir. It is.
And longer than most marathons, right? Not
Yeah,
26.2.
right.
It's
It's
50.
Yeah, or more. I tell kids all the time, you're going to work at least 40 years of your life.
Yeah.
You better like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are stuck in marriages. Not me, Mark. Maybe you, not me. So, no. So it's important that they find their passion because, it's a journey, but you want to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, I had a professor that told me, Mark, you can either learn how to flip burgers or you can learn how to, really be good at math. Your choice. You're going to learn something. You're either going to learn how to beg or you're going to learn how to add value.
You're going to occupy a space.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to occupy?
Exactly.
I remember I tell the kids a story all the time. When I first came to Harlingen in 2001, I was visiting the campus as new assistant superintendent for secondary education. So I did the curriculum piece and oversaw all the secondary school. And I was visiting the campuses, and I was visiting one of my secondary campuses, brand new to Harlingen. Didn't know a soul, right? And I heard somebody call me as I was walking the halls, and I said, Arturo, and I looked back, and I said, do you remember me? And I said, yeah, you look very familiar. And she said, we graduated together from high school. I said, oh, yeah, no, I know. And then so, and she said, I was so happy to hear you were going to be our assistant superintendent. I said, well, what do you do? And she said, I work in the cafeteria. I said, oh, okay. She said, but you know what I thought about before you got here? Because, they announced that I was coming in and I had to transition. We walked the stage the same. We both got a diploma the same night. And the choices you made led you to this, and the choices I made led me to where I am. She said, so to your point, we're all going to occupy in some space, right? It's what choices do you make and what are the things that you're deciding to do along the journey. And, I believe that we don't get here alone. We need a lot of support. We need their mentorship and so forth. And so everybody's work is critical. You never know what you're talking to kids about that you're going to flip that switch of passion and say, this is what I want to do. One of my board members says it all the time. There was no indication in my pathway that I would be a physician until I had a conversation with one of my teachers in high school. I said, you're going to be a doctor. Said, what do you mean? What is that? What's a physician? That's what I do. But you never know, Mark. So you never know that impact you're going to have. And so when you're in your purpose and you're in your why, you wake up every day and say, we're living our journey.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's their turn, and we got to do everything we can to put them in the front of the line of opportunities, Mark. Not in the back, Jay.
In the front. In the front.
I talked to Jay.
He's
listening.
He's still
there.
He's still watching. So thank you, everyone, for staying tuned in. We've been talking a wonderful 53 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun.
Wow.
I want to end, with the big picture. But before I get to that, based off of your story, John F. Kennedy, he was president at the time. I believe it was 1961, and he went to go visit NASA. And he's going around, being president, shaking hands with everyone. And he finally gets to the janitor, and he says, "What's your role here?" And the janitor stands up and says, "I'm helping put a man on the moon."
Super nice.
And it makes it's very, wow, that's a powerful statement. But understanding that everyone has a purpose and everyone's part of the plan. Mm-hmm. When you think like that, it's like, wow, that's a reason to wake up. That's purpose.
Well, and I tell people all the time, I deploy 3,300 people into this school district every day.
Yep.
To do the great work, and I realize that as a superintendent of the year and so forth, I have a lot of people that do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And we're blessed in Harlingen, and I have a great board and so forth. But the reality is, we deploy 3,000 individuals within our school structure to make a difference.
Yeah.
And to ignite the fire.
Yeah.
I think we can make a difference.
Oh yeah, and you
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
You are.
I appreciate that.
Well, you know, the last thing that we want to end with, you know, in a perfect world, big picture, you know, we didn't talk about the companies coming like SpaceX, you know, Boca Chica Beach in Brownsville, and other big manufacturers that will probably be using robotics to manufacture in the future, and so many other things that have not happened but are definitely going to take place in this competitive geographic area that we're in. What is your big picture, your vision in a perfect world, and how is, you know, Harlingen, you know, CISD going to be a part of that?
So we have to recognize our reality first, right? And this movement, UTRGV created a movement, right? And so if you study UTRGV, let's study UTSA, right? Let's study the medical school, UT Medical Center. If you look at San Antonio before that, very different than what you see now,
Yeah.
right? That's going to happen here. And the demographers say that we're 1.3 million population. We're going to double or triple that in the next 10, 15 years. That's our reality.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how are we going to occupy that, and how are we going to position this district to be ready for that change that's going to happen? It's not if it happens, it's going to happen. And so some of the things that we're doing and what we do here in Harlingen is that we study and we work closely with Texas Workforce Commission. We work closely with looking at what are the job markets, what are going to be the demands. We had SpaceX individuals come and meet with our entire administrative leadership team here in Harlingen. This was a year and a half ago. And they said, look, just like a hospital, we're not going to need all engineers. It's going to take a lot of people to run our systems.
Yeah.
It's going to take master electrician, master plumbers, and let me tell you, if this community cannot produce those high-end technical jobs and employees, we're going to take them from where they are.
Yeah.
Which would be my people, right? And so we launched 5 academies in Harlingen just this year. And we did an apprenticeship academy, and where the kids are learning not only commercial, but home electrical systems. They're learning the welding programming, they're learning the plumbing programming. And why, Mark? Why is that important? Because you may start as a plumber and then own the plumbing shop, right? And so I started as a teacher. And look, so because we start in a place, and so we call them on and off ramps, and so you're on the highway, and you may go off ramp because you've gotten a certification or you've gotten your associate's degree and what have you, and then you're going to go on your on-ramp again. And so as you're doing that, you want to be a productive citizen. And so in those spaces like SpaceX and so forth, the reason that we're transforming into academies formats and apprenticeship academy and, you know, the media arts communication academy, all those are wheels that are going to be turning in a big organization. And so if you think if this population is going to boom like that, right, it'll be a sad day, Mark, I would think, if we're importing people to take those jobs.
Yeah.
I think that we have a responsibility to position our kids to occupy those jobs. It's theirs.
Yeah.
And so that should be our crusade every day.
Yeah.
Every day, to ensure that we're creating pathways and we're creating deep dives, authentic learning experiences into those spaces. So to answer your question, we have some things in development that are directly aligned to how this region is going to transform. And we're going to continue to launch that, and we're going to continue to transform our school district, because it's not okay to not reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Because this whole world is changing every time we turn around.
Yeah. You don't change, you end up like Sears.
That's right. Well, and where are they now? No, I'm not going to say that because I bought a refrigerator from. But I will tell you, you remember the first cell phone?
Yeah.
Of course, you were a kid, I'm sure. But
the
big
bag.
people thought, you know, how many purchases are you going to carry? Well, one of them was a phone.
Yeah.
Right? And we're down to.
It's too light. It's too light.
It's too light. Or people are lined up to get the new one every time it comes out. I mean, somebody's making a lot of money, Mark.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we're gonna stay in tuned and work closely with the Texas Workforce Commission, Texas Workforce, looking at the job demands in this area. But remember, our kids are not just competing with individuals from the valley. We're competing at the state level and at the national level. So
Yeah, all over the
we're
country.
in a position, sure.
It's going to be very exciting, 15 years from now to see all the graduates from, Harlingen, CISD and where they are.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, we have champions now. We have a rich alumni that have done great things in this world and continue to do great things. But we have a lot more in the pipeline, and we have a lot more kids. And I'll tell you that one day we're going to look back, and if education is in great shape, I gave it my best shot.
Yeah.
But if it's not, I want everybody to feel like we gave it our very best. In Harlingen CISD, we're on a mission.
Yeah.
We're on a mission, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure our kids have all the opportunities that they need, and so that they have choices and they have opportunities, and that's what we're all about.
Anything that you want to tell to any parents out there that are looking to find a school district for their kids?
Well, I will tell you that we're really passionate about the work that we do in Harlingen. We're very purposeful. We have a strategic plan, a board, a leadership team, teachers, phenomenal teachers that guide the work. But I will tell you that we welcome individuals that move into our community to jump on our journey, because we're on a mission and we're going to transform our Harlingen Public Schools, and we're going to continue to reinvent ourselves, because our kids, our highest hopes is that the excitement they feel at graduation is the same excitement they feel the next day, because they know their purpose and they know what they're going to pursue. And we're not going to rest until we get to that point.
There we go. A never-ending mission. I love it.
A never-ending mission. The work is never done, Mark.
Well, Dr. Cavazos, thank you so much for your time today. I am confident that we will be back to break more great initiatives that you and your team are kicking off. To everyone that tuned in, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. At the end of the day, these conversations are about educating the community, coming together, and moving forward together. So until next time, talk to you soon.